Hello, we're going to do some wrist stretching exercises to start warming up the fingers and wrists and really a little bit into the elbows and a little bit into the shoulders. If you're newer to yoga or if you're just cold and need some kind of a warm-up routine to start getting you into your hands and wrists to do some things that require some flexibility and strength with your forearms and your upper body, this is a nice way to start. You can just be really, really gentle about getting some motion and movement into your wrists and forearms, a little bit into your fingers, and just a little bit of activation so that the blood starts flowing, your joints start warming up, and when you start doing things that require more body weight exercises into your wrists and forearms, they're warm and they're ready to go. And this may be plenty for you for a while to really just start opening up the fingers and wrists and the tissues of your forearms to get them ready and more flexible and more prepared to do a full yoga class or even a full exercise class that requires more weight bearing or more response from your hands and your wrists and even into your shoulders. In subsequent videos, we'll do more with shoulder exercises, shoulder blade flossing, and more warming up the shoulders, but this is really just going to be focused on the wrists and forearms for the next few minutes. So I'm going to have you start in a tabletop position, really right here, just like this. And it's a little bit shorter than a tabletop rather than my hips being right over my knees. My knees will be a little bit forward in front so I have a bit more mobility onto my wrists, but just start with your hands right below your shoulders so they are shoulder width apart. Really, the rings of your wrists are right below the shoulders. So there's a nice weight into the hands and wrists. And then from here, fingertips are straight forward. Really, the finger that's straight forward is your index finger. So the index finger comes right below your shoulder and then straight outward from there at like really a right angle on both sides. So make sure that's the case first, and then also wrap your elbows in so the eye of your elbow, the front of your elbow, is pointing forward as well. So you wrap your elbows in, that index finger is pointing straight forward, and then from here just gently rock back and forth. You're really going some amount of maybe 15-20 degrees back and forth, and it really depends on how flexible your wrists are to begin with. You may have much less range of motion, and that's fine. We're really just going to sort of a comfortable space without much resistance in either direction. So just go ahead back and forth. It's about 30 seconds. We're going to do this kind of slowly 10 times. And then once you've done that 10 times, you're going to flip your hands over and point your fingertips toward your knees and do the same thing. There's going to be less movement, especially sitting backward. I really get stuck about right there. Maybe I have 10 degrees of flexibility this direction, but there's just a little bit back and forth like this. And again, we're going to do this about 10 times, and then we're going to stop and flip your hands so they're pointed outward. So we're just going to get another sort of range of motion, and this is much more comfortable. It's easier to go back and forth, especially after we've done the first 2 movements of this exercise. And we're here, again, about 10 times back and forth. It's about a 30-second kind of warm-up. And a lot of what we're really doing is just putting weight into the hands so they get used to moving around like this. And the wrist bones, there's 8 little wrist bones, and those wrist bones get used to managing the weight on top of them. And they get used to moving a little bit differently and sustaining a little bit more force through them. So we're really doing most of the weight through our knees. And if you need more weight going through your knees, just bring your knees in so you can bear more of the weight here in the back of your body and take the pressure off of your wrists if this is a little bit too much right now. And then once we do that, we're going to flip the hands over so fingertips are facing one another like this. Here, and then again you're going to wiggle back and forth, just sort of gentle, easy. When you flip the hands over like this, sometimes it's easier if you wiggle back and forth and you bend your elbows. This sometimes gets pretty intense on the wrists, especially the back of the forearms, and so just a little wiggle back and forth again for about 30 seconds, just like we've done with the other ones. And then once you're finished with that, I do want the fingertips to go backward towards your knees again. And then lean forward, straighten your elbows, and that might be enough for you. If you have any space, you can bring them back a little bit, but just be careful with that because the wrists are really vulnerable right here. So again, you can keep the elbows bent. Try to straighten them if that's comfortable for you, but if it stretches more than what feels like a stretch and it starts to feel like it's damaging something, obviously back off of that. And then just sit back a little bit. And so that's kind of a two-part stretch. So we're straightening the elbows and then sitting back and coming forward and bending the elbows again. So it's just a little bit more of a lateral movement in the wrists, and then also squeezing the wrists down just a little bit. And once you're finished with that, come up. Place your hands so they're in the original position. And kind of move your feet back a little bit and your knees back a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to run into our hips. So what I'm going to have you do is sort of like a very small push-up from here. You're just going to drop your elbows straight down and then touch the ground if you can get them there, and then push back up off the ground so you're at a right angle again. And so we're just dropping down and then we're coming back up. So it's a little bit of a core activation. It's a little bit more of a wrist activation. And now we're starting to activate some of the muscles around the shoulder blades. We just want to keep those shoulder blades stable when we do this. Dropping down and pushing up. And let's just do 3 more of these. And 2. And 1. And that's it. Good. So that really takes your wrists through a whole bunch of different ranges of motion to start getting them warm. It feels a little bit looser through the middle of your wrist. If you touch your forearms, they should be a bit warmer than they were when you started. And we're starting to get some activation in the shoulder blades, really just for support. So when you do this, be careful your shoulders aren't raising up to touch your earlobes and they aren't falling backward or really squeezing forward. They're in really sort of a neutral position. And if you can keep them there, you're going to be in a really safe place to do these in a good way that's not going to injure anything. In an open packed position, when the shoulders are either forward like this or even on your side, like a side plank kind of pose, the shoulders are in an open packed position, so we're really just relying on the muscles to support the whole mechanics of the movement, which is good, but we need to make sure we have good mechanics so that we're supporting everything properly. And so this one, again, when you're here the whole time, you're really keeping your shoulders neutral rather than way too far up or your shoulder blades raised up on your back or too far down your back, and then you end up getting kind of a big arch in your back. So it's just kind of this neutral place here that feels really safe and secure from here. And as we work our way down our whole body, we'll get more and more activation through the system and through the core. But right now, I really just want you focusing on your wrists and hands, a little bit forearms, and just feeling a neutral position through your shoulders.